you can make up a great interview. You could even have a bad interview, but you can't run away from your past. And so have a good past. Try to have a good past. And in a lot of ways, I was serious when I said I was a good dishwasher. I was probably Denny's best dishwasher. I planned my work. I was organized. I was mise en place. And then I washed the living daylights out of the dishes. And then they promoted me to busboy. I was certain I'm the best busboy Denny's ever had. I never left the station with empty-handed. I never came back empty-handed. I was very efficient. And then so anyways, eventually I became, a CEO.
But how did you convince the most sought-after investor in Silicon Valley to invest in a team of first-time founders building a new product for a market that doesn't even exist?
I didn't know how to write a business plan. So I went to a bookstore, and back then there were bookstores, and in the business book section there was this book, and it was written by somebody I knew, Gordon Bell. And this book, I should go find it again, but it's a very large book, and the book says How to Write a Business Plan. And that was a highly specific title for a very niche market. And it seems like he wrote it for 14 people, and I was one of them. And so I bought the book. I should have known right away that it was a bad idea, because Gordon is super smart, and super smart people have a lot to say. And they want to, and I'm pretty sure Gordon wants to teach me how to write a business plan completely. And so I picked up this book. It's like 450 pages long. Well, I never got through it. Not even close. I flipped through it a few pages, and I go, you know what? By the time I'm done reading this thing, I'll be out of business. I'll be out of money. And Lori and I only had about 6 months in the bank. We had already Spencer and Madison and a dog, and so the 5 of us had to live off of whatever money we had in the bank, and so I didn't have much time. And so instead of writing the business plan, I just went to talk to Wilf Corey, and he called me one day and said, hey, you left the company. You didn't even tell me what you were doing. I want you to come back and explain it to me. And so I went back and I explained it to Wilf. And Wilf at the end of it, he said, I have no idea what you said. And that's one of the worst elevator pitches I've ever heard. And then he picked up the phone and he called Don Valentine. And he called Don and he says, Don, I'm going to send a kid over. I want you to give him money. He's one of the best employees LSI Logic ever had. And so the thing I learned is you can make up a great interview. You could even have a bad interview, but you can't run away from your past. And so have a good past. Try to have a good past. And in a lot of ways, I was serious when I said I was a good dishwasher. I was probably Denny's best dishwasher. I planned my work. I was organized. I was mise en place. And then I washed the living daylights out of the dishes. And then they promoted me to busboy. I was certain I'm the best busboy Denny's ever had. I never left the station with empty-handed. I never came back empty-handed. I was very efficient. And then and so anyways, eventually I became, a CEO. I'm still working on being a good CEO. Microsoft introduced a standard called Direct3D, and that spawned off hundreds of companies. And we found ourselves a couple of years later competing with just about everybody. And the thing that we invented, the technology we invented 3D graphics with, the consumerized 3D with, turns out to be incompatible with Direct3D. So we started this company. We had this 3D graphics thing, $1 million thing. We're trying to make it consumerized. And so we invented all this technology. And then shortly after, it became incompatible. And so we had to reset the company or go out of business. But we didn't know how to build it the way that Microsoft had defined it. And I remember a meeting at on a weekend, and the conversation was, we now have 89 competitors. I understand that the way we do it is not right, but we don't know how to do it the right way. And thankfully, there was another bookstore, and the bookstore is called Fry's Electronics. I don't know if it's still here. And so I think I drove Madison, my daughter, on the weekend to Fry's, and it was sitting right there. The OpenGL manual, which would define how Silicon Graphics did computer graphics. And so it was right there. It was like $68 a book. And so I had a couple $100. I bought 3 books. I took it back to the office and I said, guys, I found it, our future. And I handed out, I had the 3 versions of it, I handed out, had a big, nice centerfold. You know, the centerfold is the OpenGL pipeline, which is the computer graphics pipeline. And I handed it to the same geniuses that I founded the company with. And we implemented the OpenGL pipeline like nobody had ever implemented the OpenGL pipeline. And we built something the world never seen. And so a lot of lessons are right there. That moment in time for our company gave us so much confidence. And the reason for that is you can succeed in doing something, inventing a future, even if you were not informed about it at all. And it's kind of my attitude about everything now. You know, when somebody tells me about something and I've never heard of it before, or if I've heard of it, don't understand how it works at all, my first thought is always, you know, how hard can it be? And it's probably just a textbook away. You know, you're probably one archive paper away from figuring this out. And so I spent a lot of time reading archive papers, and it's true. It's true. You can now, of course, you can't learn how somebody else does something and do it exactly the same way and hope to have a different outcome. But you could learn how something can be done and then go back to first principles and ask yourself, given the conditions today, given my motivation, given the instruments, the tools, given, you know, how things have changed, how would I redo this? How would I reinvent this whole thing? How would I design it? How would I build a car today? Would I build it incrementally from 1950s and 1900s? How would I build a computer today? How would I write software today? Does it make sense? And so I go back to first principles all the time, even in the company today, and just reset ourselves. You know, because the world has changed. And the way we wrote software in the past was monolithic and it's designed for supercomputers, but now it's disaggregated, you know, so on and so forth. And how we think about software today, how we think about computers today, how we think, just always cause your company, always cause yourself to go back to first principles. And it creates lots and lots of opportunities.
You have 50 direct reports. You encourage people across all parts of the organization to send you the top 5 things on their mind. And you constantly remind people that no task is beneath you. Can you tell us why you've purposefully designed such a flat organization? And how should we be thinking about our organizations that we design in the future?
No task is to me, no task is beneath me, because remember, I used to be a dishwasher, and I mean that. And I used to clean toilets. I mean, I cleaned a lot of toilets. I've cleaned more toilets than all of you combined. and some of them just can't unsee. I don't know what to tell you. You know, that's life. And so you can't show me a task that's beneath me. Now I'm not doing it only because of whether it's beneath me or not beneath me. If you send me something and you want my input on it, and I can be of service to you, and in my review of it, share with you how I reasoned through it, I've made a contribution to you. I've made it possible for you to see how I reason through something, and by reasoning, as you know, how someone reasons through something empowers you. You go, oh my gosh, that's how you reason through something like this. It's not as complicated as it seems. This is how you reason through something that's super ambiguous. This is how you reason through something that's incalculable. This is how you reason through something that, seems to be very scary. This is how you seem. Do you understand? And so I show people how to reason through things all the time. strategy things, how to forecast something, how to break a problem down. And you're empowering people all over the place. And so that's how I see it. If you send me something, you want me to help review it, I'll do my best and I'll show you how I would do it. In the process of doing that, of course, I learned a lot from you. Is that right? You gave me the seed of a lot of information. I learned a lot. And so I feel rewarded by the process. It does take a lot of energy sometimes because, you got, in order to add value to somebody and they're incredibly smart as a starting point, and I'm surrounded by incredibly smart people, you have to at least get to their plane, you have to get into their headspace. And that's really hard. That's really hard. And that takes just an enormous amount of emotional and intellectual energy. And so I feel exhausted after I work on things like that.
If you could share one parting piece of advice to broadcast across Stanford, what would it be?
It's not a word, but have a core belief. Gut check it every day. Pursue it with all your might. Pursue it for a very long time. Surround yourself with people you love and take them on that ride. So that's the story of NVIDIA.
Jensen, this last hour has been a treat. Thank you for spending it with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.